أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Dear brothers and sisters, we start our 7th lecture today on the life of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In the first 4 lectures, we created background of the conditions in Arabia surrounding his birth. We gave you some perspective. We gave you baseline status on the condition of society, the system of beliefs, the different kingdoms that were there, the tribal relationships, and the values that were the currency of society at the time. In the 5th lecture, we talked about his birth and the conditions surrounding his birth and his upbringing as a child. And then in the 6th lecture, we talked about his early childhood, his development, and his achieving the status of prophethood, or him being assigned the responsibility of prophethood, which we call the Amanatul Kubra, or the greatest trust in the world, carrying the load of prophethood, being the last prophet sent by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to humankind. And in the narration of the life of the Holy Prophet, we frequently discuss the what happened, and when it happened, almost in a sequence, in stages after stages after stages. But we don't always go into the why. And this is one of those times then we'll stop a little bit in the beginning at least to dissect a little bit of the why and so forth before we go further into the narration. So we talked about the first narration, which we believe came on the 21st of Ramadan, when the Holy Prophet, according to his Gregorian date of birth, was about 39 years and some months, and according to his lunar date of birth was 40 years and some months. And so it was the first 5 verses of Surah Alaq. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Iqra bismi rabbikal ladhi khalaq, khalaqal insana min alaq, iqra wa rabbukal akram, alladhi allama bil qalam, allama al insana ma lam ya'lam. So we talk a little bit about the first revelation. So whenever we look at the Quran, the instructions that are in the Quran could be for the perspective, the reference, and the context of a particular incident, and they could be broader for the general humanity. And frequently, the verses, the signs of Quran, the ayahs, serve both purposes. They are on a narrow perspective for that date and time when an incident was taking place, but in a broader perspective for the entire humanity, for the rest of time. There are certain passages which are basically addressed for particular spaces and times, and we should look at them in their context and not out of their perspective. And sometimes when we blow those meanings into the rest of humanities, we get into issues of fundamentalism and extremism and narrow meanings of classical verses. So we should be aware that certain passages do carry references, context, and perspectives of certain issues that occurred, but also the broader message of the Quran is for all of humanity for the rest of time. So look at the first 5 ayahs of Surah Alaq, and Jibreel asked the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam to read. And the Holy Prophet says, I don't know how to read. And he says, read in the name of your Lord who created. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds the Holy Prophet of our humble beginnings, created man from a clot of blood. But he says, Iqra wa rabbukal akram, that Lord is very, very generous. He taught man the knowledge of the pen, which is the writing, the written knowledge. And it taught man what he knew not. Allama al insana ma lam ya'lam. So this emphasis of education, this emphasis on education and learning is very, very important in Islam. And this education is not just about reading. It's not just about understanding. It's not about communication. It's not about writing. But it's also about discernment and enlightenment and broadening your horizon and creating a perspective that is wide and broad, a global or a 30,000 foot view as we call it now. So it's important, very important in Islam, the process of learning. And so what we frequently do, remember we were talking in the last lecture about form versus function. We said if you have a Maserati, a Chevrolet, a Porsche, and a Corvette standing in your driveway, and your mom says, go get me some milk, and the car doesn't drive, then basically that form means nothing. That shape, that car with a beautiful color and a chrome trim and stainless steel and glass and shaded windows and the nice muffler, and the spoiler mean nothing because the function is not there, right? So when we just parrot the Quran, when we just read the Quran, we get only a small dimension. We get the value that the car does in the driveway. It has a good value of reading that it gives you some blessing, but the blessing is limited. The true the truth of the Quran is the Iqra bismi rabbika allazi khalaq khalaqa al-insana min alaq Iqra wa rabbuka al-akram allazi allama bil qalam allama al-insana. So it taught man what he knew not. So the only way to know what you don't know is to read. That is the first level. You read, and then you quickly have to get to the next level of understanding. And once you understand it, you have to implement it in your life. And once you implement it in your life, you have to take this message to others, and you have to help them get into the journey of reading and understanding and implementing in their life without being in their space, without being intrusive, without being forceful, through implementation of this message in your own character. So I wanted to just throw that out there. And so we come very quickly to the second part, which we discussed in the last lecture, that the Holy Prophet is fearful, he's afraid, his heart is beating, he's panting, he's running home, he comes to his wife, he said, cover me up, cover me up. She covers him with a sheet or blanket, he rests against her thigh. And look at the beautiful words she says to him, right? She says to him, God will not disgrace you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not disgrace you. Why? Because you are kind to others, because you carry the load of the tired. You're kind to others, you carry the load of the tired. You help those people who are in need. You're hospitable to guests. And when somebody is disaster stricken, you go to aid them, okay? So frequently, our worship of Islam is basically amantu billahi wa malaikatihi wa kutubihi wa rusulihi وَالْقَدْرِ خَيْرِهِ وَشَرِّهِ مِنَ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى وَالْبَعْثِ بَعْدَ الْمَوْتِ. Right? We said there is one Allah, there is only one Allah, we don't take partners in Him, and we believe in His angels, right? And we believe in His books and His messenger, and we believe in the good and bad destiny, and we feel that all of those are from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we believe in the resurrection after we die, to be raised from the dead, to be accountable for our actions. And then most of us are involved in obligatory worship, right? We do salah, we do zakah, we do saum, we do hajj, we've already taken our shahada, or we believe in it with our heart and soul. But we ask ourselves if this is the spirit, the soul, and the real meaning of Islam. So who is the salah for? Who is the shahada for? When you say, Ashhadu anna la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu an, who is this for? This is for yourself. This is for yourself. This is not for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this is not for humanity. When you pray salah, who is that salah for? It is for yourself. It's for ourselves, for our own salvation. It's a minimum required obligation, right? There is an element of public service when you establish prayer. Aqim as-salah, you go to the mosque, you collect other people. But primarily, that salah, the focus and the beneficence is to yourself, right? We look at saum. Who benefits from the saum? Does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala benefit? No, we fast for Him. But it benefits us, right? Who does hajj benefit? Surely it financially helps the people in the business of religious tourism, but it benefits us. But it doesn't benefit humanity. Zakah, zakatul mal, is the only action, and it is obligatory. It's not charity. It's what we call poor due. It is a tax implemented on us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we can get off to help the poor if we are able to do that. So all of these actions benefit ourselves. So the system of beliefs and the obligatory things that are obligated on us only help us. So then what is Islam? When we say, إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, what is عَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَات? Is عَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَات the 5 things that I just described which are obligated on us? Or is عَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَات mean something else? My dear friends, brothers and sisters, عَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَات is what Khadija bint Qawilat, al-Mu'mineen, the wife of the Holy Prophet, his most trusted partner, his advisor, his counselor, his source of comfort, is what she just described. Islam in its entirety is what she just said. Kindness to others, carrying the load of the tired, helping those in need, hospitality to guests, and help the disaster stricken. And surely he was not doing this for Muslims. He was doing it for everybody that came across him. Everybody. There was no discrimination there. So this is really important to ask, why? Here we stop our narration to say why. And this is the why. We do this because this is the right thing to do. And this is the soul and spirit of Islam. And this is why the Holy Prophet was chosen into the office of prophethood. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. All blessings on him, his family, and his followers and the Sahaba. So then, having been appointed in this office of prophethood and being confirmed by his wife, and then Waraqah bin Nawfal, there is really no instruction other for him than to read, right? There is no other instruction. It doesn't say that now you are a prophet. Remember, the Holy Prophet has not read history. He did not know the history of Adam, the history of Nuh. He didn't know the history of Lut. He didn't know the history of Ibrahim alayhi salam, or Musa alayhi salam, or John the Baptist, which is Yahya alayhi salam, or Ashabul Aika, which is the followers of Shu'aib alayhi salam. He did not know these people. He did not know Joseph or Yusuf. He did not know their history. He was not learned. So that what was he supposed to do? He knew all of them later on in the course of time when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala imparted this knowledge to him. But at this time, at this point, when he's sitting with Khadija radiallahu, he doesn't know what to do. So the second revelation tells him exactly what to do. And that is the first, some say first 5 lines of Surah Mudaththir, some say the first 7 lines of Surah Mudaththir. It has a clear instruction that now that we have appointed you in the office of prophet, or we have raised you, elevated you to the stature of prophethood, this is what you have to do. And what is that? Ya ayyuhal muddaththir, O you who covered yourself, qum fa'anzir, rise up and warn, wa rabbaka fakabbir, and glorify your Lord, wa thiyabaka fatahhir, and keep your clothes clean, keep your garments clean. Warrujza fajur, and shun filth. Wala tamnun tastakthir. And for all of this goodness that you're doing, these favors you're doing to other people, of carrying the load of prophethood, or doing this difficult work, of learning, teaching, understanding and teaching to others, of this difficult work, for all of this, the opposition you will face, the difficulties you'll face, you're going to take your life from a happy, calm, collected, affluent life with your wife in your home into turmoil and revolution. Wali rabbika fasbir. And now you have to be very patient on the difficulty, the adversity, the turmoil, the opposition, the persecution that is going to come your way as a result of this exhortation. And this doesn't end for the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is in the path of everybody who does the right thing by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in society. This is the inevitable truth. If you look at the life of all the holy prophets, they all face this. Musa alayhi salam with Fir'aun, right? John the Baptist with the king of the time. So all of them face this level, or from the people that were their followers. So then we talk about this first verses coming to Allah to the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So what is the message, right? Qum fa'anzir, right? Rise up and warn. I frequently get into discussions with the leaders of other faiths who tell me that the Quran is full of warnings. It's full of the message of gloom and doom, of the hellfire, of how people will burn and how they'll be punished, and it will be a harsh day of accountability. And their scriptures would always show peace and love. And so I take a pause and I try to explain to them that, first of all, that is not completely correct. The other scriptures, the heavenly scriptures, also define hell, hellfire, and punishment. And it's very, very clear in many of the passages. However, there was an extra burden on the Holy Prophet, and this is the why. Why is Quran? There's much good news, there's much love, there is much understanding, right? All of this Rahman and Rahim and Wudud and Salam, all of this is mentioned in the Quran, like peace and love and forgiveness and oft forgiven and very forgiving. But why is there also warning in the Quran? Because you could have had the message of peace and love and kindness only for all of humanity until the final word, until the last word. After this prophet, there was nobody going to come to warn people, right? So if only the message only contained kindness and love and peace, then who was going to warn them of the harsh day of judgment, of the difficulty of standing in front of your Lord, of being accountable for your deeds, of paying the price of something that you did that was bad? So who was going to warn them? So this was the last word. This was the final message. So it had to contain both messages, right? وَبَشِّرِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ, Quran says in many places, right? Good news for the believers. But there is also the warning for the people who did not believe, who did not do the good deeds, who opposed the holy prophets and the good people and obstructed their path and did mischief and bad deeds, not only in that time, but in the current world, who worked against humanity. So that is really why. So qum fa'anzir, get up and warn. وَرَبَّكَ فَكَبِّرْ, and so glorify your Lord. So the glorification was happening for idols, right? People who were worshipping idols. People who were worshipping idols on 2 accounts. So first of all, some of them thought that the angels on your right and left, the kiram and katibin, could be depicted as idols. And so if the angels were going to write bad deeds about them, if they made idols and they worshiped the idols, the angels would soften up and write good deeds about them. And then we talked in our earlier lectures about the man who was a religious person. He went to Syria, he got the idol of Hubal, and all the people started following him and thought that that was a good practice. So when we say وَرَبَّكَ فَكَبِّرْ, glorify your Lord, then He is the only one that can be glorified. Nobody else can be glorified, and everybody else is subservient and humble in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So only His glorification and nobody else. And so this is the anti-shirk message. So he has to get up. He has to warn the people of the day that is coming. He has to warn the people about the accountability that is coming their way on the day of judgment. And then he has to do this and glorify Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so his path is going to be difficult, because glorified is not Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is the idols. وَثِيَابَكَ فَطَهِّرْ. So ثِيَابَكَ فَطَهِّرْ is a representative. It says that keep your garments clean. But this clean garment, clean body, clean soul, clean mind is just a depiction of inside and outside purity. As you remember, when Isa alayhi salam met his cousin brother Yahya alayhi salam, John the Baptist, at Jordan River, at the Darya Urdun, John the Baptist bathed Isa alayhi salam. He gave him a bath. And that was a ritualistic purification to show that I'm purifying you both on the inside and the outside. So فَثِيَابَكَ فَطَهِّرْ, this cleanliness of your garments is just a representation not only of the cleanliness of your garments, but of your body, of your mind, of your soul. This is the tazkiyah. This is the purification that we talk about in the Quran again and again in terms of zakah and tazkiyah, about purifying yourself. وَثِيَابَكَ فَطَهِّرْ وَالرُّجْزَ فَاجُرْ. And as a result, all of the society that is involved in filth and distractions, it has to give up this lewdness, this immorality. We talked about some of those things in the past, on how the rituals of marriage were conducted, and you have to shun all of them because it was a sacrifice. Remember, society cannot be all good and all bad. Even if you are living in the nicest group of people, in the company of good people, today, in the day of television and radio and internet and Facebook and WhatsApp, you are going to get exposed to lewdness and nudity and vulgarity. It is up to you to stay away from it, right? So they're saying, وَالرُّجْزَ فَاجُرْ, shun this filth and shun this bad stuff. وَلَا تَمْنُنْ وَلِرَبِّكَ, so فَلَا تَمْنُنْ تَسْتَكْثِرْ وَلِرَبِّكَ فَاصْبِرْ. And so don't ask anything in return for what you're giving humanity. This office of prophethood is big. It's great. It's intense. It's difficult. But when you do this favor to humanity, don't expect anything in return. Don't think that you are going to be rewarded in this world for this. You are not going to be. And it is for all the people who are going to come after you, who work in this path. وَلِرَبِّكَ فَاصْبِرْ. In fact, people are going to abuse you. People are going to oppose you. People are going to persecute you. In the face of all of this, for God's sake, you are going to be steadfast. We are going to be patient, you're going to be solid, and you're going to be reflective and introspective and thoughtful and purposeful to create value in your exhortation instead of being impulsive and angry and upset. So this is the character. This is his khasa'il hamida. This is his good characteristics, his high level of quality. This is makarim akhlaq. This is the character of the Holy Prophet that was able to carry the load of prophethood, of the finality. It's not just prophethood, it's the finality of prophethood. So you talk about the pinnacle of Rabbika Fakabbir, that nobody else is glorified. You talk about the pinnacle, the highest point, the highest altitude, the elevation was Thiyabaka Fatpahir, its cleanliness of body, mind, and soul. Warrudza Fajr, you reject everything that's bad in the way and that doesn't belong in the way of the good. And Wali Rabbika Fasbir, and then you're patient on it, right? And all of that, you don't want more. You don't want people to thank you. You don't think that you're going to do this to get more out of people or from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You are going to do this because this is the right thing to do. This is the good way to go, and this is the only way to go. And in all of this, you are going to be patient, solid, and steadfast. So ihsan is this ultimate good that we do for people, and we put up with everything that comes our way in it. So let's talk about the logic of this message, right? and the logic in the message that the Holy Prophet is delivering. We all know that this world does not give equality. There is not much social justice. There is some in certain societies, but it's relative. It's present in some forms, it's not present in some form. So there is the playing field is not level. The good people always don't do well in this world. The good people don't always become rich. They always don't have big middle class houses. They don't have nice vacations. They don't drive nice cars, and they generally don't live longer and healthier lives. We know this for a fact, right? We also know that bad people don't always end up badly in this world. Sometimes we see them get rich, sometimes we see them prospering, sometimes we see them rising to a high political office or social status, driving nice cars, having good vacations. So sometimes you see the good people prosper in this world, and sometimes you see the bad people prosper in this world. Sometimes you see the good people suffer, and occasionally sometimes you see the bad people. But the playing field is not level. There is not one for one when you do good that your result in this world is going to be good. So there has to be a day when all of this comes to a head and there is equalization in that equilibrium is created, and you are judged on the basis of your good and bad deeds. And then there has to be a life after that in order to carry out either the reward or the punishment based on your earlier behavior. And so Islam and the Holy Prophet and the Quran put an accountability on us that this is what you have to prepare for in the life hereafter. So there is a great deal of logic in this. So now we get to the Holy Prophet's life. The Holy Prophet's life can be divided into two parts: his life in Mecca and his life in Medina. His life in Mecca was about 13 years. His life in Medina was about 10 years. And within his life in Mecca, there are three stages. There are three stages or phases in his life in Mecca. The first 3 years, when his exhortation, when his invitation to the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, into this belief system, into rejection of shirk, into building cleanliness and tazkiyah inside your soul, body and mind, in doing good, general good for others without the expectation or anticipation of reward. This was the covert operation, or his silent or secret message to his closest allies for the first 3 years. Then the second stage begins in year 4 and takes us to almost the end of the 10th year. And this is when the ayah of Surah Ash-Shura came, وَأَنذِرْ عَشِيرَتَكَ الْأَقْرَبِينَ, and warn your closest relatives. And so the Holy Prophet then gets up and he starts spreading this message to his relatives who are not in his closest circle, who we know are going to oppose him and persecute him. And this takes us to the end of the 10th year. And then flow from close to the end of the 10th year to when he immigrated to Medina, which is about 13 years, so 3 years in the third phase. That is the period when he exhorted or took the message outside of Mecca, to places, to people who were outside of Mecca. We know that he made the trip to Taif. We know he talked to the tribes that came from outside. We know he talked to the Hujjaj. We know the people who came in different groups from Medina in a few successive years, and each year there was a greater number of people accepting Islam and so forth. So we will talk about the life in Mecca in the 3 phases or stages, and then we'll talk about the life in Medina when we get to it. So the question is, why was the Holy Prophet raised in Mecca, and why this life in Mecca? This is another place where we stop to ask why, right? We're always talking about what and when, what happened and when it happened. So if you understand, Mecca is the nexus, it's the center, it's the nucleus of the religious world of Arabia. The Kaaba is there, the Quraysh are there, all the main idols are there. The Quraysh have taken an idol from all the big tribes and put it in the Kaaba. There are 360 idols, and this also gives them free passage. So when they do travel in summer and winter, so the Quraysh are now used to the travel. They're used to the travel of summer and winter. When they travel, they have relative protection because they have idols from these tribes on the way sitting in Kaaba. So why Mecca? It's because Mecca is the nexus, it's the pinnacle, it's the nucleus, it's the religious center. So this is where you are going to face the greatest opposition, because when you come with an iconoclastic message, when you come with a revolutionary message that is going to shun all the existing beliefs, here's where the root of the problem is. And so to strike at the root of the problem, the Holy Prophet was raised in Mecca and nowhere else, because this is the height, the pinnacle, the highest point of religious services in Arabia. So we get to the first invitation, right? So as soon as he gets that invitation, Ya ayyuhal muddathiru qum fa'anzir wa rabbaka fakabbir wa thiyabaka fatahir wa rujza fajr wa la tamnun tastakthir wa li rabbika fasbir. Who is the first person to accept Islam? It is a female. It is a woman. It is the mother of all of us believers. Our mother, Khadija bint Qabilad radiyallahu, she is the first person to accept Islam. And as we know it, she comforts him, consoles him, and offers her full support to him, and stays his source of comfort for the several years to come in the future. And then the next is Zayd bin Haritha. Zayd bin Haritha bin Sharjil was captured in a war. He was brought to Makkah. He was sold in slavery. He became a servant of Khadija radhiyallahu, who then gave him into the service of her husband, the Holy Prophet. The Holy Prophet, being the Prophet of mercy and love and kindness, releases him from his slavery, releases him from the servitude, and adopts him as his son. So Zayd bin Haritha comes to be known as Zayd bin Muhammad. It is only Islam's injunction and instruction that comes later that you can adopt the children, but your adopted children are not your birth children. They are separate from you. That he is known to call it Zayd bin Haritha, but at that time he was called Zayd bin Muhammad, because the Holy Prophet, out of his kindness, had adopted him and gave him so much love that when his father and uncle come to get him back, he refused to. And he had the free will to go, but he refused to go with them. He wanted to stay with the Holy Prophet. So Zayd bin Haritha, the next one, as we know, in line, and Ali ibn Abi Talib radiyallahu, may Allah be pleased with him. He is 8 to 10 years old. He is living in the house of the Holy Prophet as a little child would live with an older cousin, and the Holy Prophet is responsible for him, is taking care of him, and essentially raises him. And so we know how the character of Ali radiyallahu and who he became and what he is in our lives and in the world, in his status in Sahaba, that he was the third one. The Khadija, Zayd bin Haritha, Ali radiyallahu, and then he goes outside the house. And the first person he goes to outside the house, as you know, you go to the people you love, you go to the people you trust, and you go to the people who believe in you. It's just no different than today. You go see something good, you go to a nice restaurant, you eat a nice food, you go to a vacation, you like the place, and you immediately send pictures to your family and friends because you want to connect them. You want to connect them with that place, with that experience. So the Holy Prophet, with his good experience, with the best of intention, went to the people who he cared for, loved the most, and who trusted the most, and who he knew would believe him. So the next one was outside the house, his closest friend and ally, his friend in all the difficulties, Abu Bakr Siddiq radiyallahu, who immediately accepted Islam. And then Abu Bakr Siddiq is no ordinary man. He is very well loved, he is very well liked, he is a soft-spoken, gentle and kind person. He is also very popular. Everybody loves him. He has a lot of visitors. So through his efforts, immediately Uthman bin Affan, who also became a Khalifa later on, and then Talha bin Ubaidullah and Sa'ad bin Abi Waqqas, we know their story, how they protected the Holy Prophet in the Battle of Uhud. We will recite that story when we get to it, and how they risked their own lives. And then soon after that, it was Bilal Habshi in the very early days. And we also know that Abu Ubaidah bin Jarrah and Amir bin Jarrah, and we know that Sayyid bin Zayd, who was married to Fatima bint Khattab being the sister of Umar radiyallahu. And so this group started growing, and some people describe it to be a group of 40 people. We can't get into the names of all of them, but we call them the Sabiqeen Awwaleen. We call them the first and foremost in Islam, the people who accepted the Prophet, embraced him. And so it is silent exhortation, is very secretive exhortation. They believed in the message, they adopted the message, and small lines with rhythmic endings, very terse, very, very, very attractive, very short in message on this world, the hereafter, the good news to the believers, the bad news of punishment to the disbelievers on the Day of Judgment. These basic concepts of Islam, on the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, on the Day of Judgment, on the accountability. These verses after Surah Mudassir started coming very, very quickly. So the first 7 lines of Surah Mudassir come here. The next line from ayah 8 onwards come much later on, and even Surah Alaq, the first 5 lines come at this point, and then the rest of the surah comes much later on, as we know it today. For those who are interested in the sequence of revelation, I can give you that exact period. But I think this is enough for this discussion today, and inshallah we are going to continue with our 8th lecture. This time we will describe how the initial invitation happened, how it worked, and then the second phase of the invitation, in which he was opposed by his uncle Abu Lahab 3 times in three different gatherings. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.